Now in this video, I wanted to cover some key study techniques to help you to prepare for the TOEIC test, because they can make it a significant difference in how well you recall and retain information that you learn. I teach the psychology and neuroscience of learning and memory at a university, and I just want to share with you some brief things that can really help you based on neuroscience and research. I present these topics in different conferences and in different settings to really help individuals learn and remember and recall information. By knowing some of this information, it should help you to enhance your study methods so that you can remember and retain the information, which will boost success. Okay, number one is to pay attention. Whenever you learn something new, you want to focus your attention on the study material. This is crucial. Intentional focus boosts neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and acetylcholine in the brain, but then we also want to take short breaks too. If you study for 15 minutes very intensely, I recommend taking just a short few minute break of relaxation. New learning and memory research shows us that it is all about engaging and disengaging to enhance learning. The stressful part of really focusing your attention, sometimes it feels stressful anyway, and focusing your attention intensely for 15 minutes or so, and then being able to relax, which diminishes that stress, allows the brain to more fully retain and learn information. New research on this, even in the last 3 years, shows you that when you are intensely focused and focus your attention to learn something and dive into something and really focus all your energy in it for at least 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so, and then after that to relax, that relaxation period, maybe just closing your eyes for a few moments or disengaging just for a few moments. Science has shown that neurons in the brain during that relaxation period or disengaging period and the neural network that was involved in learning that information actually replay during the resting to strengthen that neural pathway. So paying attention is very important, and we often think that we have a bad memory, but in reality, we really just haven't been paying much attention to things in the first place and allowing our brains to catch up through rest, which is enhancing learning. Now, as an example, when studying vocabulary, you may want to eliminate distractions so you can pay attention. Some research from University of Utah showed that students that even had a cell phone at their table while studying were more distracted and couldn't give full attention, even when they didn't even pick it up. Just the tempting things that draw our attention we want to eliminate so we can focus and intensely focus on learning. And when studying vocabulary, you may want to solely focus on the words during the listening practice of the TOEIC test. And as you practice the listening practice in the practice session with this training course, you want to ensure that you're in a quiet environment so that you can catch every detail of the audio. Having attention is important. Another thing with learning to memory and helping to retrain your memory is to boost learning, is to link new information to something you already know. That's why analogies are great, or creating associations to long-term memory, because it helps the new information you learn from short-term memory to long-term memory. It's especially helpful for vocabulary and grammar rules. As an example, we want to associate new vocabulary or words with synonyms or antonyms you're already familiar with. Synonyms are words that are similar to words you already know, while antonyms are different words you already know. But when you think about that, it is connecting these new words with something you are learning to the words you already know. Again, it is also very helpful to connect grammar rules to real-life situations you experienced. As an example, let's say you were trying to learn a subject-verb agreement concept, which means the subject and the verb in a sentence must agree in number. They must be both singular or plural. So a good way to remember this rule is maybe you think about a past experience where you and a friend were planning a party. When discussing the party with your friend, you might say, "The cake is delicious," which is the singular subject, cake, with the singular verb, is. This is known as an episodic memory, something that you've experienced in the past by experience and is typically pretty strong. Now, linking to an image in your mind is super helpful too. Visualizing information helps it to make it more memorable. When we create mental images for names or dates or other details, it can really strengthen your memory. As an example, for vocabulary, you may want to draw a picture or find an image online that represents the word itself. When you visualize grammar and grammar rules in action, such as imagining a person performing an action or drawing on previous experience, even or previous long-term memory, to tie that in, you can remember verb conjugations. Verb conjugations, by the way, is the process of changing a verb form to provide information about the action. Now don't worry, we will cover this more in detail in this course. Just wanted to give an example. Now, practice makes perfect, we often hear, but is it true? Repetition is really key to strengthening memory for facts and even skills. Consistently practicing different aspects of the TOEIC test will not only boost and improve your proficiency, but will also help deepen your understanding behind the concepts of the TOEIC test, including vocabulary and grammar rules. Being more familiar with the test procedures and testing methods will help you. So you want to regularly take practice tests to become familiar with the format and the different types of questions, and repeatedly write and speak new vocabulary as much as you can and are able to reinforce retention of this material. Now, engaging multiple senses can really enhance memory and retention as well. It's a great study technique. Instead of just reading silently, as most new learners do, you want to incorporate other senses like hearing or touch or hands-on activities. As an example, when preparing for the TOEIC test, you can read vocabulary and grammar rules to learn them, but read them out loud. This helps you to encode the information or internalize the information both visually and vocally. This engages more areas of the brain, specifically the occipital lobe that contains the visual cortex, and the temporal lobes, which are specific areas that contain language comprehension and speech. When you do this, there's more networks and neurons involved, and more learning occurs. Also, when you practice writing sentences, this gets you actively engaged. Instead of silently reading, when you write out sentences, you engage your sensory systems, which more engage your parietal lobe and frontal lobe, and the somatosensory cortex, and your whole brain is engaged. This really reinforces learning as well. Now, using memory aids can really help you to manage your study schedule and reduce cognitive overload as well. When it comes to learning effectively, as I mentioned before, is to know when to engage and disengage. Some people eager to learn something think that it's all about intentional and attentive efforts without the need of taking breaks. But research has repeatedly shown that you need resting periods, at least some relaxation periods where you disengage for a teeny bit. And you do not want to overload your brain because learning new material becomes much less effective and much more difficult. You also have a difficult time learning too much information at once, and this will not allow you to focus on the essential information. As an example, you can use a calendar or a planner to schedule study sessions and track your progress. This will help you to reduce your cognitive load. You can also write down key points or important information on sticky notes and place them in visible areas if you need to go back to something, such as you study and keep something else in mind. You just don't want to be thinking about multiple things at a time while you're trying to study. Now, time travel is an important aspect as well, and it refers to recalling where and when you first learned the information. So this comes to during the actual test. If you try recalling where you first learned the information, the situation, the episodic memory, or basically the memory of experience, where you first learned the information, this can trigger the associated cues necessary to retrieve that memory, and it will trigger those associated memories. And it can help you to retrieve that information when you really need it. When you recall the situation in which you may have learned the information, like a mental walk back, that usually helps with recalling the information because situations act as a memory cue. As an example, if you can't really recall vocabulary or a vocabulary word, think about a specific lesson or the specific context in which you studied it, and even think about the memory that you had of studying it. That will more easily allow you to retrieve it. Also, if you recall the environment where you practice certain grammar exercises, that will also help you to remember them and recall them. We also want to make sure that we get adequate sleep. I mentioned the breaks and the importance of taking breaks, and that will really help in enhancing our learning memory because it gives our brain a chance to configure itself. But also sleep at night, the deep rest sleep at night that we get, really consolidates those memories and better stores them. At a neuronal level, or at the level of neurons, at the brain level, neurons that are engaged in learning material during the day are first primed with a chemical called acetylcholine, and it does this to make those neural networks involved more receptive to learning. And then as you go to bed and get deep rest, your brain's remarkable ability to change happens through a protein called BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. What this protein does is creates and develops new dendrite spines on the neuron. The more of these dendrite spines, the better, because that makes more connections in your brain to solidify the information you learned. That is why students that think they study all night to enhance their learning typically don't, or actually are much worse off when they stay up all night because they need that rest. Without deep sleep, for the brain to actually take the time it needs to reorganize itself, study won't be effective. Most experts agree that you need 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night, and that is good before study sessions. However, if you're someone who only sleeps 6 hours and you're a person that just needs less sleep, as an example, research has shown that consistency of sleep may be more important than the quantity of sleep. As an example, if you've been going to bed at night for the last 10 years at 11 p.m. and always wake up closely to like 5 a.m. and you've been doing this for a very long time, you may want to keep that habit, because trying to get more sleep by altering your sleep patterns before a test can actually disrupt your focus the next day and make you feel more groggy. You can also take short naps as needed, as long as they're short and don't make you groggy. 15-20 minute naps are fine and can help you focus as well. And if you get exercise during the day, that even enhances deeper sleep. And also the BDNF, the protein I mentioned. Now you can also try rhymes or songs that can help you remember lists or different sequences of information. This technique really can help you because you connect the information to long-term memory again, and it helps the information to stick. That information sticks that you are trying to learn. As an example, if you want to create a song or a rhyme to remember irregular verbs or specific grammar rules, you could use mnemonic devices such as I before E except after C to understand spelling patterns, etc. You can even look online to see if there's any mnemonic devices for other grammar rules to come up with, as well as coming up with your own. Again, I cannot emphasize enough that relaxing or the resting period is so important. We often stress over remembering information and just want to go full speed ahead, but it can be counterproductive if we do not relax, recharge, get sleep, and allow disengagement from learning for a short time. Again, learning is both a practice of knowing when to engage in intense study, but also just disengaging for at least a couple minutes after intense studying to allow the brain, as neurons replay those same neurons in the neural network that was used for studying during the resting periods. Taking breaks are important, and focusing on something else can be okay, but really the learning and memory science out there shows us that focusing on nothing after an intense study session, even just for a short time, a few minutes even, and taking breaks frequently to just focus on nothing and just relax deeply will enhance learning. Also, relaxing can help you if you get stuck on a question during a practice test as well. The reason this happens is because the brain, when it goes between a focused state to a relaxed state, there's different neural circuitry in the brain that switches back and forth, and when this happens, a lot of times you can hit upon a solution. Taking regular breaks again during study sessions can help you relax and clear your mind, but also can eliminate stress as well, or the anxious feelings that are too strong that may not help us to learn very well. Alright, I hope this was helpful. Now in the next video, we'll talk about some vocabulary and grammar essentials. See you then.